different books and so on. And I said, you must read a lot. She said, yeah. She said, I don't know if she said disabled, but that's what the problem was. And I didn't ask. She went on to say that she was diagnosed as being bipolar. And of course, some of the things that she went on to say she was diagnosed with, I said, yep, could check the box here, so to speak. I can't help that. I don't know if the Bible has the answers to help that. My point being, there's so much that I don't know. I know Ashley, Danny and Teresa Street's daughter, has a degree in, I don't know if you call it psychology or what, but my point being, dealing with the human mind, there's so much. I don't know that I can sit down across the table from someone, and even if I had the right answers, would it cure the problem? I don't know. So I'm saying, rambling as I may be, there are extremes that, no, the Bible doesn't give us, just do this, that, and that. That's the end of it. But I do think there's many other issues that the Scriptures help us with, principles that'll help us overcome the difficulties we often face, such as depression. Now, when I was in school years ago, I know some people had the concept, no Christian should ever be depressed. If you're a faithful child of God, you can't be depressed. If you are depressed, you're not a faithful child of God. I don't believe that at all. Okay? And what they were going from the principle, the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance, etc. Well, we have an example, thankfully, and I don't think anything is, in my opinion, when it comes to Scripture, just happen chance. But we have an example of someone who was depressed. Now, when I use the word depressed, let's make sure that we're communicating. How do you define the word depressed? All right, not happy. What are some other characteristics of someone who's depressed?
You almost feel like there's no way out of that not happy.
They're alone? Ashley?
You almost feel like there's no way out of that not happy.
Yes. There is no future. Helplessness. Either one you want to use, hopelessness or helplessness. But those are the feelings that basically I have no future. I'm just down is a key word there. And that affects, I'll say it that way, many people in our world today. I'll guarantee you, I know David Irick. If my wife was in an accident and didn't make it home, and I'm saying, she's deceased, I'm going to be down. And I don't mean mourning, which I think is natural for anyone, grieving process. Sometimes I think, it would almost be to the point that literally, I don't want to face tomorrow. Okay? Now, did the Scriptures give us any idea of how to handle such things? And I think depression can be easy for some people more than others, okay? Because we're all different. All right, now here's the 1 Kings chapter 18. In 1 Kings chapter 18, we read about Elijah. If you know anything about Elijah, he was this fiery preacher. He didn't wear he wouldn't have wore a suit and tie like I'm wearing this morning. He didn't try to fit in with the elites of his day, but he was just I don't mean this derogatory, but he was just a rough country preacher. He was a man's man, if you'd have thought about it in that sense. Even John the Baptist was said to come in the spirit of Elijah, if you remember. And John the Baptist, he wore the rough garments. His food was locusts and wild honey. In other words, it wasn't that of the common man. Well, that was Elijah. And we think of this man's man, and here he is in chapter 18, and he's having a contest. He sees he's by himself. He sees there's 450 prophets of Baal, and he says in essence, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't have time to read this whole chapter because it's the next chapter I'm really interested in, but he sees this contest, or he offers this contest. Let's see who's the true God. You say Baal is the God. That's right. We say Baal is God. And I'm saying Jehovah's God. Let's make here two altars. You make an altar for Baal, I'll build an altar up for Jehovah. Don't put any fire on it. Okay? You can go first. You can call upon Baal. And if he sends down fire and it consumes this altar and this this animal sacrifice that you've made, then God is Baal. You know, that is the God of heaven and earth. Let's all worship Baal. But at a certain time, if Baal doesn't respond, then it's my turn. And I'll build an altar. I'll offer this animal sacrifice, put it on it. I'll call upon the Jehovah God of heaven and earth. And if he sends fire down, then God is Jehovah. And they people said, you know, that's fair, is it not? I mean, it was during the age of miracles, of course. Please keep this in the proper time frame. But, yeah, all right, that's good. That's what we'll do. All right. The people of Baal, they build this altar. They offer this sacrifice. They call upon Baal. What happens?
Not much.
It's kind of a boring day in the area. All right. Nothing happens. And the people even get to the point that they cut themselves. And Elijah's mocking them. If you're there at 1 Kings 18, look at verse 27. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, "Cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is talking, or he's pursuing," in other words, he's out hunting, "or he's in a journey, or peradventure he sleepeth and must be wakened." And they cried aloud and cut themselves with their manner, with knives and lances, till the blood gushed out upon them. Now, why do you think, what was the purpose of them taking knives and actually cutting themselves? What purpose do you think that served? What were they trying to communicate to Baal?
Their desperation.
Yes, our desperate situation, and we are sincere in this, Baal. You know, this is not a time to be silent. It's not a time to be absent. Baal, please hear us. We are genuine in this. So much so that we would inflict injury upon ourselves. Look, see how earnestly we need this. Because, you know, Elijah had said, gather everybody around. He wants all these witnesses. Well, nothing happened. Verse 29, and it came to pass when midday was past, apparently that was the deadline, and they prophesied unto the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that there was neither voice nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. And Elijah said unto the people, "Come near unto me." And all the people came near unto him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down. So he does all these things, but he does something else. What does he do with the water?
Pour the water on the altar.
Verse 33 and 34, he soaks it. I mean, he makes sure that they can't say, well, you know, I guess the ground was just real dry. It hadn't rained forever, you know. And no, he's soaking this thing. He's making certain that there's no question, there's no doubt. Okay? And verse 37. Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Lord God, and that thou hast turned their heart back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood, and the stone, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. When all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." I mean, common people reasoned properly. They were rational. They were not filled with pride. They saw clearly the evidence. Jehovah is God. If you'll keep reading the next two verses, and Elijah said unto them, "Take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape." And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kidron and slew them there. Why? Because these men are false. They're worshiping something false and wrong. And of course, living under the Mosaic law, they were slain. That's all you can say. Now, who was king at this time of Israel? You know? Well, it was Ahab. Who was Ahab's wife? Jezebel. How many ladies, mothers, have named their child Jezebel? Why? Jezebel was an awful woman. She's terrible. Now do what, Tom?
Evil.
Evil. When you come to think about it, you would have thought Elijah would have been on top of the world. The God of heaven and earth has vindicated what I've been teaching. Baal has been at least, not destroyed maybe, but he's had a major setback in Israel. But then he begins to think, now Jezebel is trying to kill me. And she sent him word. Look at chapter 19, verse 1. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw it that, he arose and went for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. He's alone. Now, I want you to think about this. Do you think Elijah was a strong man? Certainly he was. But even strong men have times or periods in their life when they could be down. This is evident. Here's this woman saying, I'm coming for your life. Ladies and gentlemen, if you read the book prior to this, Elijah had already been chased by Ahab. Ahab was looking under every stone for Elijah. He wanted to kill him. Because Elijah had told him, because of your sin, Ahab, there's going to be a drought. And it was so bad that King Ahab was looking everywhere for him. He couldn't find him. So I think it's kind of ironic when you think about maybe he was just tired of running. Here he's had this great contest, and now Jezebel, whom he knew was an evil woman, wicked woman, had sent him a word like this, I'm going to take your life. And so he runs, he flees for his life. And I just, when I read that, he arose and went for his life, the scripture says. And I think how strong you were. But again, I think we have to be rational. Even strong men can be down. He was alone. You're going to, if we keep reading, and we will, he said, I thought I'm the only one left. I mean, why keep fighting? I'm the only one God has left here. All of Israel have gone astray. I'm here by myself. I'm tired. I see no end. When we talked about depression, that's what someone was saying. There's just no tomorrow. No reason going on. No reason to fight. And I've had enough. I want to die. And that is a characteristic of depression. When people, they don't want to leave the house, so to speak, they'd rather just, sit in the closet to escape everything. Leave me alone. I've had enough. I just want to die. I don't see any hope for tomorrow. Here's a good man who had those very thoughts. Don't tell me that a child of God can't get down. Now, maybe I'm not thinking properly. That may be. But look how, and here's the lesson. If we don't cover it, I may need more time than I don't know how much time I'll get this week to dive in as I prepare for Revelation. But look how God deals with this. And in my notes, I've got, well, if you saw my Bible here, out from it, 1, 2, 3, here's what God does. Here's his remedy. And I think there's a great answer for us. And I've even used this in small counseling. I'm not a counselor. But anyway, the times that I have talked with people who were depressed, who wanted to discuss it with me, I've used these same characteristics. All right, so he's alone. He's there by himself. Verse 4. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die, and said, It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life. Am I not better than my fathers? So that's his request. I'm done. Let me die. I don't know if you've ever felt like that in life. I don't know if you've ever viewed that there was no future. There was really no tomorrow for you. But that's the way Elijah felt. That was his prayer. That was his request. Look what he's doing in the next verse. And this is classic. And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree. Show me someone who's depressed, and I'll show you someone who the best way to escape is what? Sleep. Give me whatever pills I need to take. I want to escape everything. When I'm sleeping, this is not weighing down on my mind. That's a classic example of depression. You know, I want to escape everything, all the problems. Is there anyone here who doesn't have a problem? Nope. We've all got them. Perhaps some more than others. Some people are dealing with great health issues. Some people are dealing with family issues. Some people are dealing with work issues. Some people are dealing with neighbor issues. There's things that we've all got to deal with. It's called life. I had a very true story. I had a young person not long tell me, and this person had already, he'd already fledged. By fledged, I'm using birding terms. He was of the age that he'd already left home, okay? So we're not talking about a 16-year-old. But he already left home. And he told me, he said, I wish I didn't have to grow up. Isn't that a depressing view? Why? Well, at home, there was no need to worry about, where I was going to live. I didn't have to worry about rent. I didn't have to worry about trying to buy some. Have you looked at the prices of houses lately? Oh, we're all in reality. We all know how outrageous they are. You know how much rent's gone up? Try renting a very small home. I do deal with a lady in Johnson City, and she manages rental properties. In other words, if I have a house to rent, I can just say, hey, you rent it, you collect the rent. I don't even want to know what's going on. I just want X number of dollars sent to my doorstep. A 2-bedroom home that's wasn't in good shape, wasn't the greatest air, and she was getting $1,600 a month out of it. I'm saying, whoa. How'd you find somebody? How'd I find somebody? They're contacting me. All right, but here's this young person. Where am I going to live? How I can't afford that. And then there's electricity, and then there's water, and then there's any other utility that I might need. And then lo and behold, I've got to have an automobile. You know how much insurance is for automobile? Yeah, I do. I pay for 2 or 3. Now, I know how expensive that is. And then food price. So what I'm saying is this person was just overwhelmed. How am I going to live? So there's all sorts and kinds. I don't care what stage in life you are. Again, we look to these golden years, and then we see, and I use in a sports metaphor, I'm in the 4th quarter. You got 4 quarters or the 9th inning, whatever. But I'm in the last one. Connie hates me. She said, you're just depressing. I don't talk to you about that. Well, it's true, though, It's not halftime. I'm not 35. No, I'm in the last quarter here. And those minutes keep clicking on it. I say, okay, here's how, we're going to live probably this long. I looked at everybody else and how they're out active and driving. Honey, by the time we get to be in our 80s, it doesn't look bleak. Well, I'm living to 100. All right, well, you can. But I probably won't. Why am I even saying that? No, I'm not depressed. That's just reality. But I am trying to say I don't care who you are or what stage you may be in life. There's things that can get you down. It's this struggle. It's called life, and we're all in it. And here was Elijah. I'm through. I'm the last one, as he's going to say later. That was his view. I'm ready to die. Take me on. He wanted to sleep. Okay, look verse 5, and I want to read it in its entirety. And here's the first thing, God's remedy. And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, and behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, Arise and eat. It's clear when I read this that Elijah would begin to neglect his body. get up and eat. In his depressed state, he was at the point, I don't care about food. I don't have an appetite. I'd rather just sleep. And here was this angel says, no, get up, take care of yourself. It might be, and of course some of the men, some of you may have beards, others not, but it'd be like, hey, get up, clean yourself up, shave your beard, take care of yourself. Why? All right. Look what he goes on to say. Let's just read some more here. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baked on the coals and a cruse of water at his head, and he did eat and drink and laid him down again. All right, fine. No, you're not going to lay down. Look what he says in verse 7. And the angel of the Lord came again the second time and touched him and said, arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. Journey? So here's the first thing. Get up and take care of yourself. Eat. Why? You've got a job to do. Show me a person that's depressed, and I'll show you a person that doesn't want to work. Oh, they're lazy. Well, not necessarily. Elijah wasn't lazy. They saw no hope, no future, no tomorrow. And here was this angel saying, look, get up, take care of yourself, eat. Why? You've got a job to do. God created us with the need to be active. There's things we need to do. God never... How many times have I heard this, and I believe it to be the case? Show me a person who retires, and they get out the old lazy boy, and they lay back, and I'm not doing anything. How long do they last? Not long. Because we are designed as human beings to be active. I don't mean you have to have a pick and shovel in your hand every day until you're 90. I don't mean that. But we need to find things to do. To lay around the house, so to speak, is the worst thing that can happen to us. I don't know what else to say. Because here was God's answer for this man's depression. First, take care of yourself, get up, eat. And second, you've got work to do. You've got a place to be. Every one of us, and we have several who are retired in our audience, but I hope you have plans already for tomorrow. I do. Now, those plans can be altered, they can change, I know that. But you need plans, something to do. I need to get up and I don't care if I need to mow tomorrow, or I need to clean out this ditch line, or, I need to go visit my relative here who's sick or something. I need to bake a cake for this person who's shut in. I need something to do. Have a plan. We were made to work. One other thing about this, and I'll go on. Do you remember, and it'd take me a minute to look it up there because I don't remember the exact passage, but if you remember on one occasion, Jesus was given a parable about the 11th hour. And here's the way the parable happens. A man who needed laborers, he goes out and he finds someone to labor, and he agrees on a price. They come, they work. He goes out again and finds more labor and more, and so on. Then he goes the 11th hour. In other words, there's only like 1 hour to work, okay? And he agrees to give them a certain wage. They come and work. Well, the people who'd worked all day, they were upset. They were upset because this man was paid the same wage that they were, and they'd been there all day. Now, in that parable, Jesus talks about going out and meeting someone, in essence saying, why aren't you laboring? The point, why aren't you working? It's not natural for you, your health, your age, to be standing here idle all the day long. He said, why stand ye here idle all the day long? And their response was, Lord, no man hath hired us. Okay? In other words, we just don't have employment. And that's when they were hired. Okay? Well, apply that here. God created us to be active. And so it is. He gives him a job, something to do. All right, let's read on here a bit. Verse 8. And he arose and did eat and drink and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God. 40 days. You've got a big job here. You've got something to do. All right, but let's keep reading. We see that there's more problems. And he came thither unto a cave and lodged there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said unto him, What dost thou here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, have thrown down my altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. He saw no need to go on. Okay, that was his mindset. I'm the last one. All right, look what God tells him to do. And he said, Go forth and stand upon the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire a still small voice. And it was so, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle, and went out and stood in the entering in of the cave. And behold, there came a voice unto him and said, What dost thou here, Elijah? Now, before I read on, let me give you the idea. If I interpret this correctly, all those things that he saw, the strong wind that actually rent, and that means the word rent means to rip apart the mountain. We've heard, maybe you've been in tornadoes and you've seen the power of that. He saw after the wind an earthquake, the latter part of verse 11. The Lord was not in the earthquake. And verse 12, after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. All right, what's the point? You better look and see who's in control. I, the God of heaven, control all things. And here's, if I may summarize this and put this in this nutshell, it's not near as bad as you think. Sometimes we've dwelled upon our own problems to the point that we think, oh, it's just overwhelming me. No one can deal with it, yada, yada, yada. And God is saying, listen, it's not nearly as bad as you think it is. Who's in charge? Who's powerful? I send this wind, and it literally rips open the mountain. I've sent this fire, and I've sent this earthquake, the earth that shake. You didn't do that. You're not in control of that. I am. And sometimes Elijah, it appears to me, he was so overwhelmed with his own problems, himself, that he forgot who was really in control. I think that's so true. Sometimes we're so nearsighted, meaning I can only see self, and I think my problems are just, they're just overwhelming. I'm here all alone, and I'm like I'm on this island, and no one cares, and there's no future. And God said, look who's in control here, Elijah. Look at my power. Look at the things that I've done. And again, I've never been has any of you ever been in a tornado or near that kind of storm, Ted? Anyone else? All right. But I've heard people talk about it being, well, Ted, how would you describe it? You're good with words.
Terrifying. I've been in two situations. One, when I was in school in Knoxville, and I'm watching the news, and they're showing the tornado coming at this ancient trailer that I'm living in, and I grab my toothbrush, and I jump in the car, and I run to the school. The only building I can get in is the library, and it's completely made of glass. It was terrifying, but it didn't come to the school. It turned and went the other way. I was in Florida one time and heard it outside, and it sounds like the train, everything they say. You go outside. My house was untouched. I had this huge hedge line in the back, and it came so close to my house that it looked like somebody had took a set of hedge trimmers and trimmed the hedge, and a section a little longer than one of these rows of benches was flat like a wall. It was that close to my house.
And if you know anything about a hedge, those are tough. I mean, they really are. Hedgerows. So, but that's the point. That's what God's, gave Elijah this vision, or not the vision that it happened, I believe. And God showed him that. Look, I'm in power here. How dare you think your problem's all this severe? Have you forgot who's in control? So, first, take care of yourself. Get up. Find a job. Find something to do. Get active. And then third, it's not near as bad as you think it is. You need to remember who's in control here. All right, but there's yet one more. And I don't know if we'll get it or not. Time is almost up. But he goes on, verse 14, and he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts, because the children of Israel hath forsaken the covenant, thrown down thine altars, slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, again, here's this I problem. And I, even I only am left, and they seek my life to take it. So we go on down, and here's what God shows him. Verse 18, yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which hath not kissed him. Again, the idea was, look who's in control, was number 3. And number 4, it's not as bad as you think. And I kind of got those muddled up here a moment ago. But first, get up, eat, take care of yourself. Second, find something to do, become active. Third, realize God's in control. And then fourth, it's not as bad as you think it is. I've seen, on one occasion, a young girl. She was not married, basically a teenager. She became pregnant. And in her idea, her life was over. She was not going to abort the child. She certainly had known better than that. But her life was over. Everyone was going to be opposed to her. She would be embarrassed to ever come back to a church again. People who loved her now would shun her, so she felt. And, she could not afford to raise a child. Her parents, she hadn't even told them. She's scared, terrified to. What are they going to do? How are they going to think of me? They'll put me out the door, she thought. Again, we always think the worst. And she saw no hope of life itself. Was there a hope? Was there a future? What about that child? That child would grow up in the congregation with a great deal of love from many. Did that young girl, I'm trying to think of my words properly here. Did she suffer in doing all these things? Absolutely. While her peers were out dating or partying or having a good life, so to speak, out going to, all the time she was home babysitting. Yeah, there's consequences. But she found out that people were forgiving, that in reality, she wasn't the only one that ever made a mistake. I'll just put it that way. But she found that people would forget. There was a future is what I'm trying to get at. She was able to, our family didn't ostracize her and push her to the side. Brethren did forgive her and offer a great deal of support and help her in rearing this child. So, again, we need to support each other as we conclude here in this study. We need to help each other when we're down, because even as I said, a man like Elijah, the man's man, he'd never be down. He was. But that was God's remedy. Take care of yourself, get up, clean yourself up, eat, take care of yourself, and then get busy. There's something for you to do. It's not just sit around and dwell upon your problems. Become active. Number 3, realize God's in control. He owns the future, not me. And then fourth, it's not as bad as what you really think. Those simple principles, I think, will help us deal with something like depression. Any thoughts or comments? Our time's about up. Any thoughts? Ronnie?
You left my first love. If I tried to go back the way I was when I baptized when I first came into the church, I couldn't do it. I ain't got that kind of ignorance anymore. We reckon it's believing the idea that God's in control.
I'm not sure I'm following you, Ronnie.
I'm asking a question.
Okay, but
When I was baptized for remission of sins,
yes.
Going back to the zeal that I had, it wasn't a lot of zeal, it was a lot of ignorance. I couldn't go back to that way of thinking if I tried.
Okay.
I actually been in the church for about 30 years. You reckon it's got a lot to do with leaving God out of your life, that God's in control, and you think you're doing stuff?
Well, I don't know that I can answer that for everyone, okay? Elijah, certainly he knew God was in control. He was a great servant of God. But yet even this man, I think he was down. In other words, I'm the only one left. There's why go on? And God said, you're not the only one. I am in control still, and so on. I don't know if that even answers your question, Ronnie, but I guess that depends on the individual.
I could go back the way I was.
Oh, I understand. I do appreciate everyone's participation. I didn't give a lot of time for comments, and we may do something like this again if I'm not prepared next week, but we'll be in the book of Revelation soon. Thank you.